someone was to come to you today and say that they're depressed, what would you say? What would you do? Do you even know what depression is? Would you offer them a glass of milk? Or would you rush them to ICU? Or give them a pat on their back? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Butomi Sophia Chabalala, and today I want to break down what depression is and share with you my personal experience of what it felt like to have depression. But first, remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can get notified every time I upload new content, and also leave a comment on the comment section below. First of all, I would like us to differentiate between stress and depression. There are so many definitions that you can get from Google, from the internet, and even from a dictionary. But today, I would like to work on a definition that I created myself. Firstly, stress. To me, stress is when there is a problem or a situation that is causing tension in your life and which can affect your mental well-being or even your emotions. But the moment the problem is removed from the equation, you are okay and you're able to go on with your life. For example, you are stressing about writing an exam. You study and work very hard and that stresses you out, your emotions are all over the place, but the moment you write the exam and you are done, you are able to go on with your life. You are all okay. While depression, on the other hand, is a slightly bit more complicated. But on a simpler note, I can say that depression is a wounded mind. Depression is said to be a mental illness, and this is why. Using my own words, depression is when there is a problem or a situation that is causing tension in your life. So much so that even when the problem or the situation has been removed from the equation, you are still not okay. And it goes on to negatively impact your life. It is called a mental illness. Even though there are no medical or blood tests that you can do to determine whether someone has depression or not, psychologists and professionals do have guides as to how they can determine whether someone has depression or not. There are 9 common symptoms that you can find by Googling, which range from loss of enjoyment of activity, change in appetite, etc., etc. And I will list those symptoms for you on the side. And from the 9 symptoms, you need to at least have experienced 5 out of 9 of those symptoms for a period of 2 weeks or longer. And when I say 2 weeks or longer, it is normally ranged for at least up until 9 months. That is the average period whereby they think that a depression episode can go for. But it ranges from person to person. Let me take you back a step. I did say that depression is a mental illness. It can be medically determined that it is a mental illness. The same way that you have any other organ in your body, such as a heart and a kidney, livers, your brain is also a body, or it is also an organ in your body. When you have kidney problems, you will experience BP imbalances or you will experience BP problems. It is exactly the same way with depression. Basically, in your mind, there is imbalances of chemicals, and because it is an organ, that chemical happens to affect your mentality. You can do further research on this, but some of the chemicals that can cause some of the chemicals that may have an imbalance in your life include serotonin and dopamine. So basically, you might find out that your dopamine is lower than normal, and it's causing you a tension in your emotions. So basically, when I want to get more technical, that is what depression is. On a more simpler term, and the terminology that I will use over and over again when I speak about depression is that depression is a wounded mind. Don't just take my word for it. Do your own research. There are so many platforms that you can go to just to investigate, get yourself educated. This is the definitions that I came up with so that it can make sense to me, and I thought I would share with you. But just don't just take my word for it. Do your own research. Now, before we can go to my own personal experience and as to how I felt, like there are 3 things that I would like you to take note of. One, there are no two experiences that will ever be the same. What is traumatic to me might not necessarily be traumatic to you. What is life-changing to me might not necessarily be life-changing to the next person. So whatever situation that might have happened to a person is valid. There is not such a thing such as the reason is too small, it's not a good enough reason. No one knows what is the extent of trauma or pain that you must have experienced in order for the chemicals in your brain to have imbalances. Two, a trauma can happen at one point in life, but only for you to react at any other point later on in life. Just last night, I was listening to an interview whereby a lady said that when her father died, his body was left in the house for a period of about 2 weeks or more because they could not afford to bury him. Within that 2 weeks, his body decomposed so much so that there were worms coming out of his body. 20 years down the line, her mother could occasionally still smell the decomposed body of the father. Was the dead body still in the house? No. Her mind would convince itself that there was still a smell. It was 20 years later. Therefore, that is just me trying to emphasize to you that you can have depression or something trigger your depression at any point in time. With that said, I'm going to move on to my third point. There is an 85% chance that when you have had depression, it can come back it can reoccur, it can come back at any point in your lifetime. There is also another 50% chance through studies that when you have experienced a depression season, it might happen again within the first year of you experiencing it. However, there's also a small number of percentage that says that depression does not come back and it can permanently be healed. A person can fall in any of those categories. Nonetheless, depression, when a person is depressed, whatever they are feeling, whatever they are going through, it is valid. And there is no way of determining how many times they can have that. We need to take that into account, that it can happen over and over and over. What did it feel like to have depression? For no one else but me. Remember a point in your life whereby you felt really sad. I'm sure we've all had those moments one way or the other. For me, it felt like I went into that state of sadness and there was simply no coming back. There was nothing I could do or anyone could say that would get me out of that state. The one day I woke up and I thought to myself, I don't remember the last time I smiled or laughed. I had experienced a lot of traumatic events in my marriage. Now I had gone out of my marriage, but what remained was the sadness that I carried with me in that marriage. It took about 2 months when I realized, after I had left the marriage, when I realized I haven't felt the feeling of happiness inside of me. You know, a human body, it comes natural that when a joke is shared, you laugh. But for me, I could not feel joy. I could not feel happiness. I could not feel any other emotion. It felt like the one emotion that was consistent and I could feel without a shadow of doubt was sadness or emptiness. I could see people giving me love, but I could not necessarily feel it. I kept on telling myself, snap out of it, but that never happened. You do not just snap out of depression. Quotes, I would watch motivational talks. I enjoy gospel music and R&B. I would listen to that, but nothing inside of me would be triggered. I would not be moved. It felt like nothing around me excited me. And at the very same time, my mind was observing negativity more than it would positivity. You could tell me you love me 1,000,000 times, but I would not feel it. But the one time you're angry at me and you say, I hate you, I would immediately grab on or hold on to that word that you said, I hate you, or you're saying you are angry, and I would beat myself about it over and over and over again. I would not care how you would react to me or how you would act towards me, but I took words more than anything, and I would absorb the negativity and let it drag on. I had low self-esteem. This really, really, really affected the way I saw myself. Not because of what people were saying to me, but because of the conversations I was having with myself in my mind. Sitting here today, I cannot tell you that I'm that person who was constantly thinking about suicide. I wasn't planning on how to kill myself or anything of that sort. But I was that person. I remember the one day I was almost hit by a car, and I thought to myself, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing on earth. Then as I continued later on in life, as I went to go to a psychologist, I remember all the psychologists I went to, they kept on asking me, have you been having suicidal thoughts? And I thought to myself, no, I'm not. But the one day, the psychologist asked me, if you were to kill yourself, how would you do it? And almost instantly, I said, if I was to kill myself, I would do it by hanging. And at the back of my mind, I kept on thinking, I would hang myself because that is the one guaranteed way I know that if I hang myself, I will definitely die. Because that is how my father died. My father died by committing suicide. I have heard of other people doing other things to attempt to commit suicide, but they lived to tell the story. But for me, if I wanted to die, I was going to make sure that I'm going to die, and I would hang myself. But then also in the same breath, I told myself, I don't necessarily want to do it, but if I was going to do it, this is the information that I had. And almost immediately it was a red flag to the psychologist. And almost instantly, I blacked out. I did not hear a single thing she said to me because she did confirm that I was depressed, and I did not want to hear those words. I just zoned out, and I never went back to that psychologist again. But the final stage for me was when I saw my ex-husband's pictures on social media with him on a vacation with another woman. That totally broke me. Listen to me. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that man moving on. We had been separated for months. When people separate and then other person moves on with our life, it is the cycle of life. That is okay. But I was already not okay mentally. I was not weak, I was sick. I was not okay mentally. And for me to see that picture, it was something that I had not sat down and contemplated. The moment I saw that picture, it just opened all the miserable feelings inside of me. I felt anger, I felt sadness, everything that is bad, I felt all in the same time. And I remember driving around without any direction, and tears just came out of my face uncontrollably so. And at some point in time, I told myself, you know what, the next bridge that I'm going to find, I'm just going to drive over it. I'm still here today because it shows that I did not go ahead with the plan or I survived. Either way, there was a point in time whereby I actually wanted to take my own life. I was not an individual who was sitting down and constantly planning how I'm going to take my own life, but there was a point in time whereby I actually wanted to go ahead with it. When I'm sitting and looking back now, when I think about it, the fact that when I was 12 years old when my father committed suicide, and I had so many questions over the years, and I could not understand why he took his own life. But being in that state over a period of time when I was in my feeling or emotions of sadness, I finally understood. I understood why my father took his own life. I understood why people commit suicide. And I said it is okay. When a person tries to take their own life, by then it is determined for a person to have major depression, and it is seen as an emergency. So a person will be rushed to hospital and it will be attended there. Let's pack it there for now when it comes to that experience. Thirdly, I've never been a fat person or have been one to be of a bigger size. But now, when I was in that state, I lost appetite completely. Just looking at food was an exercise, and just to eat food, the normal food that I would eat and enjoy, now it felt like the taste had changed. Even a glass of water, drinking water was such an exercise to me. And as you can imagine, my body changed. I went from being skinny to being bony. I felt like I'm a walking skeleton. Trust me, I felt those things. I knew this, but I could not help it. It just felt like after eating, I felt like I would vomit, so I'd rather not eat at all. Physically, I could see it. I would put on lotion on my body, petroleum gel, but it would not sit on my skin. I stopped eating altogether. I would drink water and it would not taste the same, so I avoided drinking water. I simply did not have appetite, and no amount of food would excite me. Physically, I lost weight, but there are people that actually gain weight. I looked horrible. I remember the one time I told my colleague that I think I smell like death. I said this over and over and time and again, and as much as I looked at myself and I said I'm losing weight, I kept on reaffirming myself that but I'm okay, but I'm okay, but I'm okay. But in actual fact is my skin was peeling off. My black did crack. My skin was peeling off, and the dead skin smelled so bad to me, and I felt like I smelled like death. Walking around made me feel uncomfortable because people would look, stare, and ask questions, but I could not necessarily explain it. Another thing that I experienced is that I lost interest in activities that I would normally enjoy. I'm a person that enjoys the outdoors. I love traveling and I love finding things in life. I remember there was one time whereby my brother and his wife organized a weekend away from me. We went to Mpumalanga. We participated in outdoor adventures, and at the end of the day I was like, is this it? What's the rest of the feeling? I don't feel different. I still feel empty. I still feel sad. What is wrong with me? I questioned those things so much so that I decided just to stop doing things altogether, because no matter how much I would do activities, I just did not get the joy out of them. So why bother? Also, from that, I had people, family, friends coming, showing me love, because everyone could see that there is something wrong with me, but I could not give them an answer as to exactly what it was that was wrong with me. I could see them coming to me, but I did not know how to give them that love back. I did not love myself to begin with, and it was too much for me to process. I thought to myself, if I do not love myself, how do I expect another person to love me back? And I could see that because I had so much negative energy. I had zero energy. There was no energy that I was giving to people, and I thought to myself, maybe eventually they'll get tired of me. So I did not even give people a chance to get tired of me, but I got tired of being asked what is wrong or what can we do to help you, that I decided to isolate myself from people. People were trying to get close to me, but I felt better when I was alone, because even when I was in a group of people, I would still feel lonely. Just imagine having that feeling all day, every day of your life. I'm fighting with myself, I'm beating myself every moment. Like, people are laughing, a joke is being shared, laugh, but I could not feel it. So the easiest thing for me to do was, when I see people laughing, I say 1, 2, 3, smile. So just smile. It was an awkward smile, and it hurts. It's painful. Pretending hurts. Acting up hurts. Covering up emotions hurts. Feeling empty hurts. Everything hurt. I wanted to reduce the hurting, even though that didn't help that much, but that's what I thought would work. So I isolated myself from people. Another thing, the last thing that I want to point out is, I noticed that I have been feeling miserable for a few months. I was not eating. I was always sleeping, because when I'm sleeping, all I do is dream. I do not feel anything when I'm sleeping. I slept for so long, but irrespective of how long I slept, I would wake up and I would still feel exhausted. I would lose focus. I just couldn't concentrate. I could be looking at you, you would talk to me, but I could not focus. I could not. It was possible. It happened so many times where people were talking directly at me, but my brain just zone out. I was gone. Just like that, I was gone. I would not hear a single thing anyone was saying. I don't even know how I kept my job at that time. I had lost appetite. I had lost so much weight. Even people thought I had other diseases. So much had happened. So much so that I wanted to get better. I wanted an explanation as to what was going on with me. I was Googling everything there was to Google, and depression kept on coming up. But I was not ready to face that on my own. So I seek professional help. I went to one psychologist after the other. Every time they confirmed and reaffirmed that I was depressed, I would immediately change psychologists. But at the end of the day, with everything that had happened, with all the different signs that I had, the psychologist actually confirmed that I do have depression. There are many different kinds of depression, but at the end of the day, the moment the psychologist says I'm depressed, I would go, oh, here goes again. She does not know how strong I am. She does not know the kind of support system I have. She does not understand what the traumas that I faced in life. I just want to be okay. I don't want you to give me, I just don't want that label or one worded thing, because I was biased and thinking that when you are depressed, you are crazy, number one. When you are depressed, it's a sign of weakness. And all of those, with everything that I'm telling you, I hope you will be able to realize that a person who is depressed is not crazy. They are not weak. However, they have gone through something that changed their life. And whenever something happens in their life, there is something that happens in their life that triggers them, that takes them back into that place. And that place is a very dark space. That is not a time for a person to be judged, but that is a time for you to do something and help that person. If you are a person and you think you are depressed, you are out there right now thinking, I have experienced 5 out of the 9 symptoms that are being listed by psychologists, that are listed by being professionals. Maybe it is time that I take the next step to go consult and find out indeed if I do have depression or not, or even get yourself the necessary help. Thank you for tuning in. Please do subscribe and watch my future videos, so where we'll be able to break depression further, and even me possibly sharing the different steps that I took to eventually get myself help. There is help out there. There are different methods and processes that you can take to make sure that you feel better.